Caught in the act, the marketplace on planet Drex 4 was loud and full of different alien races. Bright lights blinked above the food stalls, and voices shouted deals in many languages. But no one looked at the small alien woman standing near the bread stand. She wore a torn robe, her skin pale and dry. In her arms she held a child, too thin, too quiet, too still. Her name was Serena, and her child hadn't eaten in 2 days. Serena's stomach growled, but she didn't care about herself. Her son, barely 4 cycles old, was fading. His eyes had stopped shining. His tiny hands no longer reached out. She looked at the bread, soft, warm, fresh, and made her choice. With one fast motion, she grabbed a loaf and tucked it under her robe. She turned quickly, but she was slow from weakness. "Thief!" shouted the merchant, a thick-scaled Drexian male. "She's stealing!" 2 marketplace guards rushed in. Their boots pounded the ground as they grabbed her roughly. The child cried weakly as Serena fell to her knees. "Please," she begged. "He's hungry. I'll pay later. Please." The guards laughed. "What can trash like you pay with? Lies?" A crowd gathered. Some watched with cold eyes. Others looked away. No one stepped forward. Serena shook as the guards dragged her by the arms. The bread fell from her robe onto the dusty ground. And then, a calm voice broke through the noise. "I'll pay for the bread." Everyone turned. A human male stood there. He was tall, wearing a dusty brown coat. His face was rough, his eyes kind but serious. A faded scar crossed one side of his cheek. His name was Elias. He stepped forward and handed the merchant a few credits. "That should cover it." The merchant grumbled but took the money. The guards frowned. "You're helping this creature?" "Why?" Elias shrugged. "She took food, not a weapon. She didn't hurt anyone. Her child needs to eat." Serena looked up at him, shocked. Her lips trembled. "Why?" she whispered. "You don't know me." Elias offered her the bread from the ground, brushing the dust off. "I don't need to know you, I just saw someone in need." The guard snorted. "Stupid human," one said. "Aliens like her don't deserve pity. They're rejected. Her kind was banned after the war." Elias didn't respond. He simply kneeled and handed the bread to Serena. Her hands shook as she took it. She broke a piece and placed it in her son's mouth. The boy chewed slowly. His eyes opened a little. "Thank you," Serena said softly. Still unsure if this was a trick. "Come with me," Elias said. "You can't stay here. They'll come after you again." She hesitated. She had trusted before. It always ended badly. "I'm not taking you to the police," he added. "You and your child need rest." The crowd began to move on. The guards muttered curses and walked away, laughing. "Let the human waste his money," one said. "He'll regret it." Elias led Serena through the narrow streets of the lower sector. The buildings here were broken, walls cracked, roofs patched with metal sheets. He stopped at a small storage shelter and unlocked it. Inside there was little, just a mat, a water container, and a small heater. "It's not much," Elias said, "but it's safe." Serena sat down slowly, holding her son. "You don't know who I am," she said again. "I don't care who you are," Elias replied. "No child should starve." She looked at him confused. No one had ever said such words to her, not since her mate died, not since her people were driven from the city. Elias gave her a warm drink. The child ate more of the bread and leaned into his mother's chest. Serena's eyes filled with tears, but she wiped them away quickly. "I don't want charity," she said. "This isn't charity," Elias said with a soft smile. "It's called being human." For a long moment, no one spoke. The only sound was the small hum of the heater and the child's slow, peaceful breathing. Outside, night began to fall, but inside the small room, for the first time in weeks, Serena felt something she had forgotten: hope. The shelter was quiet, but Serena couldn't sleep. Her child rested beside her, tiny chest rising and falling slowly, his belly finally full. Elias had fallen asleep sitting upright near the door, arms crossed and head tilted forward. Serena watched him in the dim light. Why would a human help her? Everyone else looked away. Everyone else spat at her kind. Her people were called the Forgotten after the war. She had begged, she had worked, she had even cleaned waste tanks, but no one cared, not until she tried to steal a piece of bread. Now this man, this stranger, had stepped in like some old story from the time before the wars. But this wasn't a fairy tale. Serena knew better. She stood slowly and looked around. She could run, take her child and disappear. Maybe. Elias just wanted to feel good about himself, then throw her out tomorrow. Maybe this was a trick. Maybe the guards were waiting nearby. She bent down, lifted her son carefully, and stepped toward the door. "You don't have to leave," Elias said without opening his eyes. Serena froze. "You're awake." "Half," he replied, rubbing his eyes. "I don't sleep too deep. It's not safe in this district." She didn't answer. "You think I'll turn on you?" he asked gently. Serena turned her face away. "Everyone does. Always." Elias stood slowly and walked over. "You're not the first I've helped," he said. "But you are the first who tried to leave with a sick child in her arms." She held her son tighter. "I just don't want to owe anyone." "You don't owe me," Elias said. "But you're free to go if you want." Serena didn't move. After a few moments, Elias reached into a small storage box and pulled out a folded gray blanket. He placed it near her gently. For him, the nights get cold. Serena slowly returned to the mat. She laid her son down and covered him with the blanket. He didn't wake. She sat beside him, arms wrapped around her knees. Elias leaned against the wall. "What's his name?" She looked at him for a second, then whispered, "Tyrion." "Strong name," Elias said with a small smile. "I had a brother once named Tarek. He didn't make it." Serena looked up. "War?" Elias nodded. They were quiet again. Something heavy hung in the air, like a memory both of them didn't want to say out loud. The next morning, Elias gave her the last of his ration bars. Serena tried to refuse, but he insisted. When they stepped outside, the streets were already buzzing. Drones flew above, scanning for illegal vendors. Children in rags chased scraps near the garbage units. As they walked through the lower market, people stared. Serena felt their eyes. She could almost hear their thoughts. "That's her. The thief. Look, she's with a human now. Worthless. Alien." She clutched Tyrion to her chest, her shoulders shrinking, Elias noticed. "Ignore them. You don't understand," she muttered. "To them, I'm nothing. I don't matter." "To me," Elias said, "you do." A merchant stepped out from behind his stall and blocked their path. "Well, well," he said. "You're still walking free, thief? And now with your new human owner?" Serena's face turned pale. Elias stared at the merchant calmly. "Move," the merchant smirked. "Or what? She's banned. She can't even buy food here legally." "I'll buy what she needs," Elias said. The merchant laughed. "You're wasting your credits. You don't know what she is." "She's a mother," Elias said sharply. "And that's all I need to know." The merchant hesitated. Something in Elias's eyes, calm but dangerous, made him step back. Serena's heart beat fast. No one had ever defended her. No one. Elias led her away quickly. After a while, they reached a quiet corner near an old junkyard. He sat on a broken crate and looked at her. "You've been living like this for how long?" Serena looked down. "Since Tyrion was born. 4 cycles. And your people? No one helped?" "They said I was useless," she said bitterly. "Ugly. Weak. No male to protect me. No place in the colonies." Elias looked at her for a long time, then said, "You're not useless. They just didn't look hard enough." A soft wind passed through the metal scraps, but for the first time, Serena didn't shiver. She didn't say it, but inside her heart, something had shifted. Maybe Just maybe. She wasn't nothing after all. The rain came suddenly. Dark clouds covered the sky, and cold drops began falling fast over the broken roofs of the junk sector. Elias grabbed a thin sheet of metal and held it above Serena and her child as they hurried through the narrow alleys. Water splashed around their boots. Tyrion was half asleep in Serena's arms, but at least he wasn't coughing anymore. She kept looking up at Elias, still unsure if she was dreaming. No one had ever shielded her from the rain. Almost there, Elias said. Just past the next gate. They reached a heavy metal door at the edge of the zone. It was dented and rusted, but locked from the inside. Elias knocked 3 times, then 2 fast taps. A long silence. Then, clunk, the door opened. A small green alien peeked out. His large eyes narrowed. "You brought company." "She's not a threat," Elias replied calmly. "And she has a child." The green alien grumbled. "You always bring trouble, Elias. Just open the door." With a sigh, the alien stepped aside and they entered. Inside was a hidden shelter made from old shipping containers stacked on top of one another. Dim lights flickered along the walls. A few beings sat around, quiet and tired. Aliens of many kinds, forgotten by the outside world. "This place," Serena whispered. "What is it?" "A shelter," Elias said. "Off the records, no scans, no patrols, just people trying to stay alive." "You live here?" "I help keep it running," Elias replied. "It's not much, but it's safe." A female reptilian alien came forward and looked at Serena. "She looks half-starved." "She's had it rough," Elias said. The reptilian woman, named Zira, motioned to a small empty space near a heater. "Put her there. I'll get some warm broth." Serena sat down slowly. The warmth from the heater touched her skin, and she let out a breath she didn't realize she was holding. Tyrion curled up in her lap. "Why do you do this?" she asked. "Elias." He sat beside her. "Because someone has to." "Even for someone like me," she said. "We're not the same. My kind. We were blamed for the last rebellion." "I don't judge by species," Elias said. "Pain is pain." Serena looked around the room. An old machine being was recharging in the corner. A blind alien boy drew patterns in the dirt. 2 insect-like siblings quietly shared a single blanket. She had lived in shadows for so long, always hiding, always hated, and now, strangers were giving her soup and warmth. "Is this real?" she whispered. Zira returned with a bowl and handed it to her. "Eat. You'll need strength if you want your son to live." Serena took the bowl with trembling hands and sipped the hot liquid. It wasn't fancy, but it was warm, and it was kind. Later that night, Elias sat with the others as they made quiet conversation. Zira leaned over. "She's not just another stray, is she?" "She has a child," Elias said. "That child might be watched," Zira warned. "Some of the guards are sniffing around again. They say someone helped an unwanted alien escape punishment." Elias's face grew serious. "They don't know I brought her here." "They might guess." Elias looked toward Serena, who was asleep on a pile of cloth holding Tyrion close. A small smile touched her lips. Maybe the first one in years. "I'll protect them," Elias said. "Even if it costs me." At midnight, Serena woke up. Her body was warm. Her son was breathing peacefully. For the first time in forever, she felt safe. But part of her was afraid. What if this kindness ended tomorrow? What if someone reported her? What if Elias changed? She walked to the edge of the shelter, where Elias stood staring out at the junk piles under the moonlight. "I can't stay here forever," she said softly. "You're not being forced," Elias replied. "I'm saying thank you," she said. "But people like me, we're used to being chased out." "Then let this be the first time you're not." She looked at him. "You keep saying kind things. I don't know how to handle them." Elias smiled. "You'll get used to it. They stood quietly for a moment. Then Serena asked, "Why do you really care?" Elias looked at her with steady eyes. "Because a long time ago, someone helped me when no one else would. And I promised I'd do the same for someone else." Serena's lips parted slightly. The wind blew softly past them. She nodded. "Then maybe I'll stay one more night." Serena sat beside the heater, her son asleep against her shoulder. Outside the shelter, the cold wind howled through the scrap piles. Inside, it was quiet. Too quiet. The warmth should have comforted her, but her thoughts were loud. Memories she had locked away came crawling back. She stared at the old wall, her fingers running over a crack in the metal. Her eyes weren't crying, but her soul was. Elias walked in holding 2 mugs of hot broth. He handed one to her, then sat near without a word. He noticed her hands shaking slightly. "You didn't sleep," he said softly. Serena nodded. "Sleep brings dreams. I don't want them." Elias didn't push her. She took a slow sip, then set the cup down. After a long silence, her voice came out, low, tired, trembling. "I had a mate once. His name was Vareth. He was gentle, kind, not like the others from our world. When the humans came, we didn't fight. We welcomed trade, peace talks, learning." Elias stayed still, listening. "But the war came anyway," she said. "Different species turned on each other. Our leaders tried to stay out of it, but someone accused our kind of hiding weapons, lies. The coalition bombed our cities. Vareth tried to protect our home." She stopped. Elias could tell the rest. Without hearing it, he didn't make it. She shook her head. "They left nothing behind. I had nothing, not even a grave." Her fingers tightened on her lap. "I ran, hid, worked anywhere I could. Then I found out I was pregnant. That's when it got worse. No one wanted a pregnant widow, especially not from a dishonored race." Elias spoke gently. "What happened to your people? Some were taken to labor camps, some disappeared. A few were branded as unwanted and exiled. I was one of them." "And the child?" "He kept me alive. He gave me a reason to move, even when I didn't want to." She looked at her sleeping son. "But I couldn't give him a future. Not alone. Not out there." Elias looked down. He knew that kind of pain, being left behind, watching everyone disappear. "I lost my home too," he said. "Earth's first colony in the outer rim. We thought it was safe. Then raiders came. My parents, my younger brother, all gone in a single night." Serena looked at him surprised. "And you still helped me?" "I helped because I remember what it felt like when no one helped me." Just then, there was a knock at the door of the shelter. Zira rushed over and peeked through the small slit. "It's one of the outer traders," she whispered. She opened the door slightly. A tall, masked alien stood there, cloaked in travel, dust. "You've been seen," the stranger said, glancing at Elias. "Word spreading. The guards know a human helped an unwanted female escape punishment. They're looking." Elias nodded calmly. "How long do we have?" "Maybe a day, 2 at most." The stranger handed Zira a chip with coordinates. "New safe zone, far from the city, but it's dangerous getting there." Then he turned and vanished into the night. Serena's breath caught in her throat. "They're coming. For me?" "No," Elias said firmly. "They'll have to come through me." Zira looked at them both. "You need to leave, tonight. I'll give you supplies." Serena looked at Elias. "You don't have to do this." "Yes, I do," he said. "You and Tyrion don't deserve to keep running forever. We're going to find a place where no one calls you worthless again." As night deepened, Zira packed small rations and a heat lamp into a bag. She handed Elias a rusted old pulse blaster. "It's barely working," she said, "but it might scare someone." He nodded. Serena stood ready, her son bundled in cloth. She looked at the shelter one last time, the first place where someone had smiled at her without disgust. "Thank you," she said to Zira. Zira waved her off. Survive. That's enough, thanks. As the three of them slipped into the shadows, a single thought echoed in Serena's heart. She didn't want to forget the past anymore, because maybe now she had the chance to build a new one. The city looked different at night. Cold metal buildings stretched like skeletons under the pale moon. Steam hissed from cracked vents. No one smiled. No one helped. This was the kind of place where people disappeared without a trace. Elias moved, carefully through the shadows. Serena followed close behind, her child bundled tightly in her arms. Tyrion was still asleep, but his little fingers clutched her robe like he knew danger was close. They had been walking for over an hour. Where are we going? Serena whispered. There's an old cargo tunnel near the fuel depot, Elias said. If it's not collapsed, we can pass under the patrol zone. After that, we head for the southern ridge. Serena nodded. Her feet ached, but she said nothing. She had walked through worse. Still, a heavy feeling pulled at her chest. And then, they heard it, a sharp whistle. Elias raised his hand. Voices, footsteps. Serena tensed. From behind a rusted transport frame, a man appeared. He was human, thin, with sharp eyes and a sly smile. Two others stood beside him, one with metal arms, the other with a tracking drone on his back. Well, well, said the first man. Look who we have, Elias the Ghost. And what's this, a pet alien? Elias didn't move. We don't want trouble. Too late, the man grinned. Guards are paying double for runaways, and triple for anyone helping them. He glanced at Serena. That must be her, the bread thief. She doesn't look like much. Serena stepped back, her grip on Tyrion tightening. Her heart pounded. Elias reached slowly for the old blaster on his belt. The metal-armed man growled. Don't try it. That toy barely fires. Elias kept his voice calm. Then maybe you should take a step back and not find out. Silence. Wind blew, whistling through the wrecks. Then, a noise from above. The drone buzzed, scanning their faces. It flashed red. Confirmed, it beeped. Fugitive match. Warning issued. Detain or report. The men smiled, but before they could move, a blast of steam exploded from a nearby pipe. Elias had kicked it loose. In the smoke and confusion, he grabbed Serena's hand and pulled her into a narrow alley. The three men shouted, coughing, but couldn't follow. They ran, through metal pathways under broken fences, past piles of glowing trash. Finally, Elias pulled her into an old control station. He closed the heavy hatch and bolted it. Serena dropped to her knees, holding Tyrion close. The child whimpered in his sleep. Elias leaned against the wall, breathing hard. They saw us, Serena whispered. I know, Elias said. They'll tell the guards. I know. Serena looked at him, her face pale. Why did you bring me with you? You could have left me, saved yourself. Elias shook his head. That's not who I am. She stared at him, tears filling her eyes. But I'm no one. I'm nothing. I'm not worth dying for. Yes, you are, Elias said firmly. You're a mother. You're strong. You survived when no one helped. That makes you more than nothing. She bit her lip, trying not to cry. Look at your son, Elias added softly. He's still alive because you never gave up. Serena looked down at Tyrion's sleeping face. A single tear fell onto his cheek. Thank you, she whispered. I don't have words for what you've done. You don't need words, Elias said. Just hold on. We're almost free. The next morning they moved again. Quiet, careful. They passed through the old cargo tunnel. It was dark and smelled of rust and oil. Rats and scavenger drones moved in the corners. But they made it out the other side. Beyond the tunnel, the city ended, and the wastelands began. Dry plains stretched under the gray sky. Broken wind towers stood like forgotten giants, but in the far distance a tiny light blinked. The southern ridge, Elias said. That's the signal. Serena nodded. We'll make it. Elias smiled, but inside he knew They weren't safe yet, because the guards weren't far behind, and someone else had begun to follow them, someone silent, watching from the ruins. The wasteland was quiet, but not empty. Elias knew that kind of silence, the kind that held danger in its breath. Every crunch underfoot, every whisper of wind made him turn his head. Serena walked close behind, one hand on Tyrion's back, the other holding her thin robe closed against the dust-filled air. The boy had woken with a cough but was stronger than before. Ahead, the southern ridge stood like a jagged scar across the planet's skin. The blinking signal light, a promise of safety, was still far. Too far. "We should stop and rest," Serena whispered. Elias looked up at the dull sun. "Just a little further. If we slow now, they'll catch us." Her eyes widened. "You still think they're following?" He didn't answer, but he knew. They were being hunted, not by loud men with guns. No, these were quiet ones, scouts, shadows, government trackers who didn't need to speak to bring terror. Elias had spotted the signs, footprints in the dry earth too fresh to be old, a broken wire on a fence that was sealed yesterday, and once at the edge of a rock wall a flicker, a cloaked figure watching from above. They weren't just chasing Serena now, they were hunting all of them. By evening, Elias found a small cave carved into the hillside. It was narrow but deep enough to hide them for a while. Serena laid Tyrion down and covered him with Elias's coat. The child clung to it like a soft toy. Elias crouched at the cave's mouth, scanning the empty plains. Serena sat beside him, her face pale. "I don't understand," she whispered. "Why do they care so much? I'm not special." Elias looked at her. "You're proof that they're wrong." "Wrong? They want people to believe your kind is weak, that you can't survive without breaking the law. But you did. You lived. You protected your son. You made them look like monsters." She didn't know what to say. "You shine in the dark," Elias added, "and that scares them." Suddenly, the sound of gravel shifting outside the cave snapped them to alert. Elias raised the blaster. Serena grabbed Tyrion and backed away. A shadow appeared. Then another. They were tall. Not human. Wearing black armor with glowing blue visors. Silent. Professional. "Trackers." Elias whispered. "Stay behind me." The first one stepped closer, raising a pulse rifle. "You are sheltering a fugitive," the modulated voice said. Elias didn't move. "She's a mother. She's property of the exile law. She's a living being. You have 5 seconds to comply. Then you'll need to take me down first." Without warning, a stun bolt shot from the rifle. Elias ducked and fired his old blaster. It sparked but hit nothing. The trackers advanced. Serena, heart pounding, looked at Tyrion, then at Elias. She stood up, screamed, and ran out of the cave. "Over here," she yelled. "She's running." The trackers turned. One followed her, the other raised his arm, but Elias tackled him to the ground before he could shoot. They struggled, rolling over jagged stone. The blaster fired into the air. Serena ran in a wide circle, leading the second tracker far from the cave. She ducked behind a broken drone husk. The tracker passed by, then suddenly turned, sensing her movement. He raised his gun and was struck by a rock. Serena had thrown it with all her strength. The tracker stumbled, and she tackled him low, just enough for Elias, now bleeding from the head, to charge in and rip the weapon from his hands. Together they knocked the tracker out. The second one escaped, but the delay had worked. The ridge was near. That night, they moved slowly. Serena limped. Elias held his ribs. Tyrion was silent, too tired to speak. But when they reached the beacon station, an old hidden outpost just past the southern ridge, there was light. And inside? People. Humans. Aliens. Quiet, careful souls who opened the door after checking faces, through a scanner. A woman with gray hair looked at Serena and said, "You're safe now, come in." Serena turned to Elias. He smiled, even though his lip bled. "You were incredible," he whispered. She reached for his hand. "Not me," she said softly. "We were." The shelter was quiet, too quiet for Elias. He sat on a soft bench made of old ship panels patched with blankets. His ribs still hurt. His left eye was swollen. But for the first time in many years, he didn't feel alone. Across the room, Serena slept beside her son. Tyrion's head rested on her chest. He was breathing slow and steady. Someone had given them real food, real water, a clean place to lie down. It felt like a dream, but it was real. They had made it. The Southern Ridge outpost wasn't much, a few hidden rooms under the sand, powered by old solar tech. But it was safe. No patrols, no cameras, no trackers. Just survivors. Forgotten people who refused to forget each other. A human woman named Mara, once a doctor, checked Elias's bruises. "You need rest," she told him. "Your body's been through war." "I've been through worse," he said with a grin. Mara shook her head. "You're lucky she was there." "She saved me," Elias whispered, looking toward Serena. Mara smiled. "And you saved her. Maybe that's how it's supposed to be." Later that day, Serena joined Elias outside, standing under the stars. The night sky above the ridge was wide and open. No lights, no smoke. Just freedom. "I've never seen the stars like this," she said quietly. "They were always there," Elias replied. "We were just too busy surviving to notice." She stood beside him, her fingers brushing his. "Do you think they'll come again?" she asked. "The trackers?" Elias thought for a moment. "Maybe. But this place is well hidden. And people here protect their own." Serena looked at him. "Their own?" Elias turned to her. "You belong here now, Serena. You're not a fugitive. You're not worthless. You're a mother. A fighter. You're part of something now." Tears welled in her eyes, but she didn't let them fall. "I don't know how to live like this," she admitted, "to be cared for." Elias gently took her hand. "Then we'll learn together." In the weeks that followed, life began to return to her. Serena helped in the kitchens. She taught some of the children her people's old songs. Tyrion laughed again, really laughed for the first time in his life. He called Elias Da one morning by accident. Serena froze. Elias just smiled and patted the boy's head. "Maybe it's not an accident," he said. One evening, while tending a small fire outside, Serena turned to Elias and asked a question she'd never dared speak before. If I wasn't an exile, if the war hadn't happened, if I was just a woman and you were just a man, would you still have come for me?" Elias didn't hesitate. "Yes, even if I was broken." He leaned closer, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "You're not broken. You're whole. And the strongest person I've ever met." Her voice trembled. "Then maybe I want to stay. Not just here, but with you." He didn't answer with words. He just wrapped his arms around her and she didn't pull away. Months passed. The outpost grew stronger. More people arrived, and in the warmth of a hidden world, once hunted, once hated, a family began. Not by blood, not by law, but by choice. A human who chose to help, an alien who chose to trust, and a child who, in the middle of a cruel galaxy, had found something rare and powerful: love.